you use that to really form yourself again and just restart and do a reset. And then the serendipitous opportunity with PHINMA Education. Tell us about how that transition happened and what did you learn from those previous years that you are trying to improve on and transform within this current setup?
Okay, falling into PHINMA Education was really serendipitous. And although you realize that you really build on all the past. The reason why they were open to considering me for PHINMA was Ramon was on the board of Policy Center. And he was happy with the work we did in Policy Center.
So he had seen that track record already and that experience.
And so when that door opened, and when PHINMA invited me in, PHINMA was still not sure how they wanted to get into education. So they basically asked, could you write us a strategy? And one of the interesting thing they asked me was, should we follow the STI model of many smaller schools all over? And actually, because of my learnings, I said, no, that's not the way to go. And so I wrote them a strategy which focused on buying bigger schools rather than setting up a whole bunch of small schools. And they liked it, so they took me in. Now, my probably most important thing I learned from STI, which I applied in PHINMA Education, is one must always be guided by the mission. And that must be the paramount deciding factor.
Well, one of the things also with a big conglomerate is how do you apply a business model, a changing business model, to something that has a social impact like education. Tell us about how you're able to change mindsets or at least align the mindsets towards this type of endeavor.
Well, first, the good thing is because of this whole field of CSR, you hear more people saying that the objective or the goal of business should not be profit. It should either be to provide employment, provide a service, provide a good product. In our case, it was a big struggle in the beginning because when we were still struggling with the model, our numbers were not doing well. Our enrollment was dropping, etc. But I think what was important was, again, we believed that we wanted to help people change their lives through education. And the way to do that was make sure we provide a quality education. So that's what we stayed focused on. We stayed focused, and even when the numbers were not doing well, we just stayed focused on that. And so when our academic results started to improve, the numbers just started to follow. But it took a few years. It took maybe, my guess is about 7 years of trying to stay the course. And it was, I must give a lot of thanks to my board because despite the fact that the numbers were dropping.
Yeah, and I would imagine their metrics were very different initially for all the other businesses, whether it be energy, cement, or whatnot, right? But tell us also about what the inflection point was. Within those 7 years, when did you feel that this model that you were pursuing was proving itself?
Actually, I didn't start to feel it until maybe the 5th to 6th year when our academic results started to show. You know, it is how important, how paramount the mission is really comes to you when you really work with the students, when you really realize how difficult their lives are and how important it is for them to get a good education and to really improve their lives. Now, it has to be a good education. It could not be just a diploma. It could not just be a piece of paper. It had to be a real education that would provide them real jobs.
It's also a good model for other conglomerates who are thinking about it. I mean, you are on 4 or 5 of the major conglomerates are now getting into education, but you seem to have found that right formula in terms of getting quality up first and then having the financial metrics follow. Is it something that you think is going to be a major field for PHINMA in terms of business returns and at the same time focus?
To be fair to the other conglomerates, I have much respect for them. They believe the same thing. That's why what happened was the whole sector kind of like disrupted with the STIs and AMAs, who came in, brought a lot of marketing, which none of the big guys knew how to do, and so it kind of changed the ball game. But then when the big guys started to refocus, and they focused more on quality, I think their numbers started to all pick up too. What makes us a bit different was our market. We I believe until today, we're still the only group that intentionally targets the lower income market. That is really trying to, as a matter of fact, drive down our expenses so I can lower tuition fees even more to get a bigger portion of the low income market to come to us. So in that sense, we're different. I don't want to give, all the other guys also knew you had to hit quality first. But in our case, trying to create a quality product for the lower income segments is a little, it's
with
tricky.
limited wiggle room as well. Right?
Yes, it's little wiggle room because our tuition fees are what, 12 to 15 to 14,000 a semester, and yet we pay our faculty really well. We give bonuses like other corporations, and we're getting kids with really weak backgrounds. That was I think the secret sauce, so to speak. How we make we made all of that work. And so I think in education, just like almost any other business, quality of the product must come first. But in our case, what made it different was it was a quality of a product being offered to a heretofore not served market.
And certainly a relatively higher risk in this segment, but at the same time, the bottom of the pyramid happens to be where the upside is. So tell us about what your views are now, infusing the policy side of your background with the education business side that you are in now. What does it take to have industry and academe come together to be able to produce the kind of workforce that really will make a difference in terms of leadership of the country?
Oh, tough. It's almost like getting, because I'm at that intersection, and I always say when you bring the two groups together, it's like they talk different languages. They just talk differently. It's almost like you need to translate. I think when you look at models around the world where this has worked, you really need people at the intersection to translate. To make it, because business always thinks in terms of hard output, while academia doesn't think in terms of hard output. And so you really need to find somebody in the middle to bring together. Normally it should be government. It doesn't need to be government. I think PBED is playing a big role in trying to make that happen. But it's not going to happen on its own. On both sides, I've heard both sides indicate a strong willingness to come together, to talk, and a great openness. But you don't see it happening to that extent that we want it to happen and to the degree where it should happen. So it'll take a lot of effort, but at least the intention and the hearts of both sides are there, which is a long way, and at least now they're on the table talking. But trying to let that move towards results in terms of actual programs will take some time.
Well, listen, Chito, you're at the height of your leadership journey, but also at the most intersection inflection point for Philippine education and business. I wish you all the best. I appreciate your insights, and great to see you again.
Thanks, Quintin.
All right, thanks.
Take care.
Thank you. Okay. Dr. Jose Rizal once wrote that before nationhood, the Philippines must have an educated citizenry. 100 years hence, Dr. Chito Salazar at this time has made it his personal mission and vocation to carry forward that legacy, and more importantly, use the tools of the private sector with a leading conglomerate to transform society for good. Join me again next week as I map the minds and the moves of the country's and world's most successful and influential people.